Welcome to Prey vs. Predator, the podcast.
In the animal kingdom, prey survive by using their senses to escape their predator. Predators in the wild are identified quickly. They look like danger, smell like danger, and will consume you if you don't act fast. In the human world, the predators look like you, smell like you, act like you. So, how does a human prey survive?
Does your relationship make you feel crazy? Like you're walking on eggshells, like you can never say or do the right thing? Are you scared that if you make a mistake, you will be devoured in one bite? Are you criticized, controlled, punished, or lorded over with contempt? Are you in a relationship with a predator?
The purpose of this podcast is to arm prey with the skills and tools they need to identify, avoid, escape, or survive a predator. This is Prey
Versus
Predator. Hi, I'm Jill. Last season, I told you about my background with a predator. One of the big things I learned through living my story was to keep myself connected and aware of what's going on in my life. That's what I'm passionate about for this Prey versus Predator community. I ask the questions that keep you looking at your big picture. I'm going to help you see the moments when wisdom visits you, and together we will acknowledge the hard calls and celebrate the good. When I'm not listening to or thinking about questions, stories, or questions about stories, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a hospital supervisor, and I'm a musician.
Hi, I'm PJ. Last season, I shared my story of what I experienced living life with a predator partner and a bit of what post-predator life has been like. I had to learn an entire new language to express and understand what had happened to me. I have always loved people and listening to their stories and learning from their experiences. As a social worker, I bring clinical experience, but my real passion comes from a deep desire to walk alongside and protect fellow prey.
Hi, I'm Amber. My predator is a parent that I am still in relationship with. It is sometimes heartbreakingly tough to keep the relationship going, but I have learned a lot about myself and how amazingly strong and resilient I am. My pain has fueled my passion for performing and for keeping this PvP community alive. I want people to know they're not alone. That is the gift of the arts, but also the gift of us telling our stories here on this podcast. You are not alone. Let's be brave and make something beautiful together. #PrayPower. Welcome to Prey versus Predator, the podcast. We are so happy for you to join us today. Today we are going to talk about I know you better than you know yourself.
Mm-hmm. Classic.
Yes, when a predator tries to tell you who and what you are. So for me, this is an important topic because as a child, my predator parent, my mother, would often say to me, I know you better than you know yourself. And it made me so angry as a child. And now in hindsight, as an adult, I can look back and go, why was I angry? It's because this person was telling me who I should be, what I should think. When you are a child, you have your own opinions. You have your own thoughts. So I did not understand why she would be doing this to me, why she would be saying this to me. But I felt guilt for having such a strong reaction. So as an adult, I have had to stop looking to others to help me define who I am.
So when your mom, or when your mom said that to you, did you think, no, you don't?
Yeah, that's exactly what I felt. I felt, no, you don't. How dare you tell me who and what I am? Because I didn't want to do something. And she'd be like, and in some ways I could see that it was pushing me to do something maybe that I wasn't comfortable with, but she could have approached it that way. But it was, I'm going to tell you who you are. I know you better than you know yourself because you don't know yourself. That was the message to me. You can't possibly know yourself, and you need to live your life looking to others to validate and tell you who you are. So that is my experience of that, and that is our discussion today. So why do predator parents want to tell their children who they are? What need is being fulfilled?
Yeah, I think it's like for me and my story and my mom, it was a way that they could control that old adage, children should be seen and not heard. Like my parents were really, really about behavior oriented to, I even remember now, we're talking about me now, by the way, when I was little, like 3, I accidentally rode my tricycle down the stairs and I broke my tricycle, and it was a brand new tricycle. And when my mom ran up to me, it wasn't, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" It was, "I can't believe you just broke the new tricycle." Oh. Like it was all about behavior. It was all about things. So it wasn't really about you.
No.
It was about the vision.
Did they
optics.
Did they ever use that phrase with you, or was there a version of that phrase?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I know you better than you know yourself. Sure. Who are you? Yeah. When I would try to make a point, it's like, no, you don't really think that. Or your needs don't actually have any bearing because you don't really need that. You don't really want that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, Peach.
Yeah, I hear what you guys are saying, and it makes me think of this technique that predators use, which is if I tell you that I know you better than you know yourself, and I can convince you that I do, then you are going to look to me for what to do, for what to think, for how to think it, and I will then have more power. I will have more authority. I will have more influence and impact. I can control not just your behavior, but I can control you trusting you. Don't trust you is the message I'm hearing. Trust me over you. And then like Amber, you're saying, then you start looking to other people because you kind of train. I like for both of you, did it not train your mind?
It trained my mind to say, I actually don't have any needs.
Oh, interesting.
Well, needs are a whole other issue, but
right.
Yes.
But really, if she's saying that I know you better than you know yourself, I think I have this need, but she's saying, actually, you don't because I know you better. It's sowing those seeds of you have no needs.
Yeah. And I also struggled with what do I want, because I will often think about, I'm allowed to go for what I want because I was raised with this understanding, you don't know yourself. I know you better. So I even as adults, I would say something to my parent and be like, well, I'm a free spirit. I don't think so. Well, I'm an artist. Well,
you're not really
you're
that
not
good.
Really.
So
yeah.
so what is your thought? What is your thought? Why would she do that?
Control. Control. I do think it's control. I think it might be also a sense that they know better because there is this predatory
Power.
Power. The thing is that's really interesting about a predator. My parent, she is quite insightful. She can suss out people. And sometimes it's so extreme and it's like, you don't know that person. Why are you thinking that they think that about you? You don't even know them. But there is a tinge of truth. And that's what is the mind bleep. It's like there is a tinge of truth, but why can't what I think of myself be a tinge of truth too?
That's right.
And why can't it be more than a tinge?
Yeah.
And why can't I decide? Because I've had to learn that I will choose my destiny. Maybe, okay, so say if I go, I really want to play volleyball right now at my age. And I say, I'm going to be a volleyball player. And she's like, no, you're not. You're not a volleyball. Well, I'm not right now. But doesn't mean I can't be. And I can't define myself as that if I'm working towards it, if I'm actually picking up a volleyball every day and going and playing. I'm a volleyball player. Now, I'm not going to be delusional and think I'm going to go join the Olympics, but I'm choosing that for myself. And I think that's the one thing I've had to learn because there was this need in my parent to control me, to tell me who I am. And it didn't help that, growing up in a religious environment as well, that is what's taught.
So I think you just brought up a good point, because before we started recording, Amber and PJ and I were having a discussion about the whole concept of the will of God and how it can be used as a weapon. And Amber, you were saying that when you have prayed about something in the past, tell our listeners what really came back to you from that.
Well, you grow up in this environment where it's like, well, God's will is the best will.
Yeah.
Right? And it doesn't prepare you for disappointments. So it's like, well, if it's God's will, it'll work out. And that's the way I was taught.
Actually.
And that's the lie too. And sometimes, I don't know, it's all so out there for me. But you pray for the will of God. And so I would pray, oh God, I really want your will. And that's the way I was raised. And because I didn't trust myself, I didn't trust what I wanted because it was bad what I wanted.
Right.
What my mother wanted for me was better, was what God chose, right? So she had all these plans for me. And there was a part of me that was like, screw that. I'm going to do what I want. But I felt against God. And I remember praying, and the thing that always would come to me is, what do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want? And I do believe that. Now, whether or not God was talking to me, I don't know. But I do believe that we work through what we want. Now, yeah, as long as it's not illegal and going to harm others or me, like, what does it hurt? It doesn't. And to define, like, I know I work with children, and it's like, if they want something, it's like, good. Okay, I'm going to facilitate what you want in the best way you can manage.
And the thing is, like, so when I'm teaching piano, I will very often say to my students, what do you want to learn? Because if the student gets to choose, they will learn. If I decide for my student, if they don't want to learn that, they're not going to learn that. So learning happens through choice, and learning happens through wants and desires. And it gets back to, again, what we were talking about this morning before we started recording, that if there is a will of God, God uses it all of it.
Well, and I think what I hear you guys saying is that this predatory behavior of I know you better than you know yourself starts to change your understanding of your will, of your voice, of what you want, and it starts refocusing it from who you are, what you want, what's going on, even being connected to what's going on inside you, and it sort of refocuses it on what does somebody else with power want?
Yeah.
How do I align myself with the like God one, the parent, God two, maybe a spiritual God, but they both and I dare not. I can only imagine how hard it would be to say no or to hold your own with a parent like God one, but then to have like a God two. Now we got two gods, right? We've got the parent who's like your primary caregiver, and then you've got this God over your parent. And if you do what's in your heart over those two, I don't know what child would have that strength, or, honestly, even as an adult, not with a predatory parent, but with a predator, that's already really, really hard. And so what I hear you guys saying is that you got realigned. Your thinking got realigned with this stuff.
Well, I think it stunts your growth. I think it stunts that thing in you if you've got proper parenting that develops that inner core of your inner backbone of this is who I am. And I like me. And what I have to say is of value. That I'm not too much or too little, or what, all those like voices in our heads that we all have because we're human. But I think it's encouraging the child to find out what is that core of themselves. And it stunts that. And especially if you back it up with scripture, all your desires are evil, all those verses. I'm sure, Jill, you can probably give us the actual scriptures where they use to like manipulate and try to keep us off balance.
Interesting that you would say that, because I don't know that there are a ton of verses that our desires are bad. I think in the Bible it's more that our desires are good. I mean, I guess they could be used for that. Can be a topic for a different episode.
Yeah. Anyways, what subtle ways do these predators tell children or even as adults that what you believe is about yourself is not true?
So I have a great example. It's not necessarily that everybody who does this is a predator, because I see people all the time who aren't predators doing this behavior, but the behavior itself is predatory. But I have struggled to go to the fair because inevitably I see parents pushing these rides that their children are clearly terrified of. And the children are crying. I don't want to go on. Don't make me go on. And the parent is putting them on the rides, saying things like, you're going to be fine. It's fun. It's fun. You're going to like it.
Override
it's great.
Their own.
And so even though that parent may, in hindsight and reflection, not do that all the time, like you guys are kind of saying, like for you, as you had more an example of this is how the parent was most of the time. But that's just, I just think of the fair. How fun is it? The child is screaming and crying and sobbing, and every time anybody you go to the fair, I guarantee you look for it, you will find it.
Yeah. In my experience, it was mostly telling me who I am. You're too sensitive. You don't want that. This is what you like. You don't know what's good for yourself. It's all these labels and telling me what I should or shouldn't do or keeping me off balance too. That was the thing. It's like, don't be too good, but be good. It was all about keeping me off balance, and then disagreeing with my choices. Like, I want to take this. Well, I don't know if that's the best for you, or you're not much of a dancer. I wrote down keeping me off my game.
So always looking to the predator.
Yes.
It keeps your eyes focused like a dog, where a well-trained dog the eyes never leave the master. That's what it sounds like to me as you would describe it.
And so like you walk there and it's like pushing you to the other way and you're like, oh, I have to go this way. And then why are you going that way? I didn't say go that way. So then you go the other way and it's like, oh, careful of that way. Oh, no, I don't think that's the best way. Come this way. And you're like,
yeah, I think it keeps you from trusting yourself.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you experience any of that?
Yeah, I think my parents were almost embarrassed that I had needs. Like, oh, Jill, don't be silly. You're not actually pretty enough to do that, or you're not thin enough to do that, or, oh, I don't think that girls like you should actually want to do that. It was more, those were the messages that I got, that I wasn't actually good enough to do what I wanted to do.
Do you think that's because they were?
I think it was about optics, because like Preacher's kids don't do this, or this might make dad look bad, or that's perhaps disgraceful. That my mom loved to tell me I was a disgrace. So
could it have been to keep you small as well, like to keep you contained,
or to keep me what they thought was godly?
Okay,
I think.
Keep you whatever
they wanted me to be. Yeah, for sure.
To contain you.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So ultimately, the goal of this statement, I know you better than you know yourself, or even not even when they say the statement, keeping you off balance, is to invoke a sense of powerlessness.
Definitely.
And it does.
It
definitely does. Yeah.
Because for years, even as an adult, I struggled with my own sense of power. It's like, what do I have control over? What can I invoke change? Sometimes I do get, even when in my darkest moments, I feel a sense of like, well, there's no point.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And I don't mean that in a like, oh, poor me. I just mean it in a, what can I do to change it? Especially in those areas of my life that are so vulnerable and so sensitive. I still struggle with feeling like I could change it.
Struggle like a house.
Yeah, give us an example.
Well, I've struggled. I've had romantic relationships that work and then don't work. And then you kind of go, well, what's the point? It's not going to work for me.
Okay.
And
almost like I don't deserve it.
Yeah, a little bit. And it's like, because I can't change that.
No agency.
Oh.
It robs you of your agency.
It's feeling powerless,
Yeah.
Powerless to change. And so for me to realize that I have power feels really good, but it feels foreign.
Yeah.
Because in my world, my parents, even to this day, there's a lot of pity. There's language about, poor you. You need me. It didn't work out for you. It's
Poor
hard.
Amber doesn't have a man.
There's that language,
Yeah.
and you can own it because this person that you've been trained to look towards to be who you are is putting that on you.
Right.
And maybe it's a way of keeping me small, but it does make me angry. And that is probably my saving grace, that it pisses me right off. Don't tell me that. Don't pity me. I hate it. I was thinking about how this can take to the nth degree in extreme cases, and we can just discuss it quickly, is making children sick, how parents Munchausen by proxy.
Oh, yeah.
Any of you have experienced or seen, I'll just give a definition for people who might not understand or haven't heard of it. It's a psychological disorder marked by attention-seeking behavior by a caregiver through those who are in their care. So it's a rare behavioral disorder, and the caretaker, often the mother, gains attention by seeking medical help for their exaggerated or made-up symptoms of their child. So they make their child sick in order to get attention for themselves. And I think that's the nth degree of this thing we're talking about. They literally make their child powerless. They literally make their child sick in order to feed a need within themselves.
Well, there was a case on, it's not Netflix, I think it's on YouTube. What is it called? Mummy Dead, Mummy Dearest?
Mummy Dead and
Dearest?
Mommy Dearest. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Mommy Dead,
about
Mommy Dearest.
Gypsy Rose Lee,
yeah.
right?
Mommy
And
Dearest, Mommy Dead. We'll
something-
look it up.
Yeah, something like that. And it's really good, you guys, if you haven't watched it. And yeah, it's about this mom who had everyone believing that her daughter, even her daughter believing that she had cancer and had many, many, many different conditions when she never did. But the daughter didn't even know she didn't have them.
Mummy Dead and Dearest.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's other documentaries around that story as well.
It was wild.
I just don't think it's as nearly as rare as we. I think an extreme case like that is rare, but I think we have a lot more mild expressions of that in our culture.
For example?
I mean, I see things like, like when I work with families, I see parents on, I would say, semi-regular basis coming in with all kinds of lists of dysfunctions for their kids. And my job in their mind is to, identify all the behaviors and whether it's ADD, ODD, ADHD, there's, all kinds of, are they on the spectrum, the autistic spectrum, are they, and that's not to say that those things don't exist. Obviously they do. And they're real things and real disorders that are challenging. But there are quite a few people who, because the child appears challenging or the parent is struggling to make the child do what the parent wants the child to do, there is a real desire for a small portion of those parents to get some labels, to get some medication, to get some attention, to get some supports for them, not for the child.
They're almost living vicariously through the kids.
Well, and because one of the things that I specialize in working with is helping them do these things without medication. But without medication means a lot of work. And again, doesn't mean that people shouldn't have medication or that, not even suggesting that. What I am suggesting is that there are some times where this is not a necessary step, or let's try this step first. And because, no, we're not here to actually make things better. And there is a small portion, but I don't think as small as people imagine. There might be 10 or 15%. The vast majority wants help for their child, for sure. But there is a strong minority that actually is invested in their child not doing well, because that explains the behavior. It's not me, it's them. And I can explain the fact that my child has problems or issues, not because I haven't been present or I have a trauma history and I don't know how to, undo that. And I, don't have time or energy or money to do the work that needs to be done. And there's lots of reasons you might not be able to do that work. But if I can just slap a label, get a pill, and people will support me, it's got to be so hard for you. I guess my point is, I don't think it's nearly as rare as we make it out to be.
That documentary is quite extreme, but it does happen. I think it is, like you say, but you're saying even in small doses, it can happen. So that's a very interesting point. Yeah. It's funny because I'm thinking about the idea of how there's this idea of a meshment, like in Mummy, Dead and Dearest. Obviously, she's making her child sick to get attention, but I'm thinking of, I know you better than you know yourself. This is the way to do this. You become powerless. You become a version of the parent or what the parent wants rather than what the child wants. So, because I know when I went to therapy, sometimes my therapist would often say to me, "You're not your mother. You're not your mother." And because I thought it was so strong, I would have to be like her. I am her on some level, or because I'm so confused because what I want is not valid.
Right, because you were told that what you thought had no validity.
Mm-hmm. So ways that how do we reconnect to ourselves? If you've been disconnected your whole life, if you've been disconnected in a predator relationship, how do we reconnect to what we want, our own desires, ourselves again?
I know in my journey, it was one of my therapists gave me the phrase, "You have the right to ask for what you want." And that phrase rocked my world. So if there's one thing that people can take with them, they have the right to ask for what they want. And that is a basic human right. I mean, it's not necessarily, we don't always get what we want, but we have the right to ask for it.
Mm-hmm. PJ?
I'm thinking what I have to say is probably a whole nother podcast, but I'm going to rip off, I'm going to rip off, Marshall Rosenberg right now and talk about want to versus have to energy. And what I will do is say, go read the book, Nonviolent Communication. He does a fantastic job of explaining why want to energy is the only place that brings joy, real joy and freedom. And why have to energy is toxic. And I'll give you this example. And I give this sometimes to clients as I work with them, is I say, I want you to imagine that I tell you that I am here as your social worker, not because I want to. I'm here because I have to. I have a job. I have mouths to feed. I have to be productive in this life. And so this is why I have to be here. And they look at me like, is that true? And I say, or I can say to you, I'm here because it gives me so much joy and passion. And it is the biggest honor on this planet to me to walk with you and have you allow me the honor and privilege of being with you as you go through this space. One brings that person joy. One brings them just devastation. So have to. I'm here, even if a friend called you and said, hey, hey, do you want to go for lunch? And you're like, I guess I have to. You did call and now I have no choice. What would you say? you'd be like, stay
Yeah,
home.
yeah. Don't come
It's all
out
right
with me.
then. It's all
Yeah.
good.
So want to is joy, peace, connection. Have to is toxic. If you are ever walking out of have to, you are opening to toxic.
Interesting.
So that's where I would say in this type of predatory behavior is just soaking you in toxic, because it does not give you any of the joy of what do you want or living out of want. It's all have to please me,
Brilliant.
to connect to me.
Even going further with that, one of the ways that I've reconnected with myself is what is pleasurable to me right in this moment.
Yeah.
And pleasure sounds so kind of dirty.
And sexual.
Yeah. But pleasure could be like, let me drink this glass of water and just feel the cold going down my throat. You know what I mean? Like something beautiful. Or let me look at the sky and do I notice the colors that are in the sky? And what does the sunshine feel like on my face?
Yeah.
And for me, that's true gratitude practice. Because they always talk about gratitude, the big they, but gratitude being a way to heal. And I always kind of struggled with that because it was like writing out, I'm thankful for water. I'm thankful for sunshine. Yeah, I am. But for me, real gratitude practice is just stopping and letting the sunshine on my face and feeling the pleasure of that moment.
The experience.
The experience. And I feel like whatever you believe in God, I think God takes pleasure in us having pleasure in the things that are created.
Absolutely.
So even if you believe in God or don't believe in God, whatever, it's just like, can you take the good things in?
Yeah.
So when I'm feeling overwhelmed, what I end up doing is just kind of in this moment, what feels good? Oh, my toes are a little cold and I kind of like that. You know, just little minute things. So that's reconnecting with myself. The other thing I think it's important is to surround yourself with friends. Here, I've got two friends in front of me who mirror back who you are, you know, so they can speak into your life and you can trust them. They're safe. I love it when you are stupid and playful, you know, it's like, and I don't mean stupid in a derogatory way,
In
but
a good way.
yeah, in the best way. Like you're silly. I love that. I remember even PJ telling me when her kids were little, I used to just get on the floor and play with them. And she acknowledged that. And she's like, wow, I've had to learn that. You know, you do it instinctually. So it's like you see, oh, you see me. I do love to play. That's why I'm a performer. So get those people. I even had a mentor of mine. She said to me, because I was feeling down, and she just said, Amber, let me reflect back who you are when I look at you. And she just told me some beautiful things. And it was like, and I don't want you to believe all the other stuff. You know, what you're not or what you should be, or because should, right? It's just, let me reflect who you are. And yes, it's the good. And we all have stuff we can work on. But that's okay. That's being human.
Well, I love that because I think what I relate to so deeply is that connecting to my deepest values. And when you have people that love you, part of why they love you is they love your values. And they love what they know. Even when you step outside those values, they can say, you know what, I noticed that you were X, Y, and Z today, but that doesn't seem like how I understand you to be.
The you
like
that
what,
I know.
Yeah.
Or
Like,
that I've seen.
like, so, you know, even if you kind of reflect, like, I'm guessing that would be, you know, I'm guessing that would bump up against your value system there. How was that for you? So you're not coming from this place like, oh, you lied. I saw it. That's bad. But you're coming from this place of like, so I know that somebody like you values being honest. And so if you said this thing that wasn't true, what was that like for you? That's such a beautiful place to come from, as opposed to like I know you lied and I know you liked it and you're bad.
Yeah.
It's this beautiful experience of trusting who you are and knowing something unique and different about you.
Well, it reminds me of that time when you were overseas. Remember, I had a roommate.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can tell the story. But I had a roommate who was quite vicious to me. Very unkind, just started yelling at me one night. And then she started saying like, oh, PJ told me all these things about you. PJ, you know, I know who you are. You're this and you're this. And anyways, it was very unkind. And
PJ agrees with me that you're this
yeah,
and this.
You're this and you're
PJ's
this.
the one that told me you're like
yeah,
this.
and it was like, you're weak and you're, you know, I don't know. I can't even remember what, but it was mean things, right? So then I called you. You were overseas. And do you remember the conversation?
Oh, yeah. You said, I think we have told this story before.
Yeah, maybe.
But I think you had said, hey, this is what this person said you said. And FYI, I trust that this isn't what you said because it would essentially not be true to who you are.
Right.
Yeah, I know you.
Yeah.
And I don't know that other person, but I know you.
But not I know you better than you know yourself.
No, I just, exactly.
But I know.
This is what I see.
This is what I see
Yeah.
in you.
Yeah.
As opposed to
Calling out the gold.
as opposed to like, well, she told me this, but you're not like that. You're like this.
Yeah.
And I know it better.
Well, I think the idea is the image of a mirror, like reflecting back. I think that that's a beautiful, or even in the water, like some sort of reflection back. That's what a true friend does, or a mentor, or a person that loves you. They reflect back rather than telling,
Say,
no.
this is who you are,
Yeah, this is an
actually.
opaque image.
Yeah.
You can't see through this. You can't see yourself. No. Or even if you say, well, I can see myself. And no, that's not what you see. It's like, no, let me mirror back. Oh, you see that? Then me too. Great.
I'm taking this in a little bit different direction. And again, this could be another whole podcast worth of material, but I can't help as we're talking about this in terms of how a predator acts, of how often we use this predatory behavior in real life, with children in particular.
Definitely.
And I just am like, kind of my skin's crawling when I think about, you know, telling a child who's upset, like, you know, you're angry right now. You need to settle down. Or a kid who's just had a little bit to eat, but they're still hungry. You're not hungry. You just ate. Or you don't have to go to the bathroom. You just went. How many times do we do this as adults to kids, shut them up and shut them down because we don't want to deal with their behavior?
Well, I remember even a child saying to me, I have trouble sleeping. And I was helping put them to bed. And I just went, does that mean you've never slept? And they said, no, I sleep. So you do sleep? Yeah. I don't think you have trouble sleeping.
Right.
You know, and I don't mean that like, let me tell you, but they had a parent tell them they have sleep issues. I have sleep issues because this person is telling me I have sleep issues. And I'm like, do you sleep? Yeah. Oh, I think you're normal. You know, and I wanted that person to understand there was nothing wrong with them because they had a parent saying to them, oh, you have sleep issues. Who knows? You know, I don't mean that children can have sleep issues, but I think there's times where we don't need to put a bunch of baggage on top of who they are.
A bunch of labels and telling them. Well, I think we do socially. I think we do this to kids exponentially. Like we tell them what to do, how to do it, what to think. We say yes when they say no.
Well, and I think, so getting back to, the way that Amber and I were raised, like very biblically, you know, children obey your parents. Like, again, it's almost a way to weaponize parenthood, or it almost gives parents the right to use their words as weapons against their kids.
We certainly sanction predatory behavior.
Definitely.
So how do we as people, or even as individuals, regain our sense of power when we've had a predator parent or even a predator relationship? How have you two, and including myself, how do you gain your sense of power back? Any thoughts on that?
I think it's about, and I'm going to talk about this in a different episode, but it's about being aware of your story and being aware of what is going on in your life. Like, actually seeing what's going on, the good and the not good. Because when you're controlled by a predator, that's really all you see. And so to take a step back and giving yourself the gift of perspective and what is my story?
Good.
I am the author of my story. That my predator is not the author of my story. I own my story. What is going on?
I love that. And I would say something in the similar vein in terms of looking at what language you're using to talk about yourself or your story. And I think when you hear words like should, ought, have to, need to, can't, these are all words that are really toxic in your body, and yet they're words that would align themselves well with this type of predatory behavior. No, you can't. Yes, you should. You must. You have to. You ought. You need to. And when you hear that language being used internally, to recognize that you pair that with toxic, and you touch base with it. Okay, let's imagine that should is a toxic word, so I can't use it. What do I actually mean?
What do I need?
What do I want? What do I need?
Yeah.
What is the value system that I bring to this situation that I bring to? Because should, if you really think about what the word should means, it's really coming from a place of what somebody else is saying.
And you should all over yourself. I love that statement.
Yeah. Well, and because you're not, even when you say it to your, I shouldn't, why shouldn't you? Because they, them in my head told me not to.
Instead of this is not what I need.
Yeah. And who wants,
in order to live into my values.
And who wants somebody who does or doesn't do something because they should or shouldn't? Like, well, I paid that person because I should, because I took the apple, so I should pay them. I don't want that. I don't want that experience for myself. I don't want to pay you because I should. I want to pay you because I'm connected to my value system. And my value is, if I take something from you, then I want to make sure I offer something in return. And if that is the money if I pay the price of it, then that's because that's what I want. That's my system of connecting to my deepest values.
Which I think it also connects to that idea of pleasurable. If I give you money, say if you're a little local vendor and I buy a bag of apples because you grew them, how cool is that? It gives me a little tickle of pleasure. Like I'm getting farm apples and I want to give you my $20 versus, I should pay you because that is what we do. There is a connecting to yourself, which is my point, is regaining it by reconnecting to what feels good to me. What do I want? What do I need? Am I angry? Why? Like even as a child going, that pissed me off when this person would say, I know you better than you know yourself. Oh, why am I angry? Rather than shutting that down and going, you're bad. You shouldn't have. You shouldn't. Again. So, and I would say even take that one step further is, what are they telling you can't or shouldn't do? Maybe you should try it. Oh, you're not smart enough. Well, take a class. Oh, you're too sensitive. Well, go be an artist and paint a picture and tell your story. Or you're too shy. Well, why don't you get up in front of people and do something? Like all these things that somebody has put in front of you as barriers or have labeled you as. Why don't you look, if it is of interest to you, if it seems slightly pleasurable? Oh, you're not athletic. Well, why don't you try, going to the gym or playing volleyball with some people? Whatever, with the labels that were put on you, I would say try it because maybe you know yourself better than they knew you.
Imagine that.
Connecting
to yourself.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, often, almost all the time, our desires, our needs, our wants are good.
Well, I think that's the source of joy. And like you're saying, pleasure. Is that space where we are trusting our value system, our deepest sense of who we are and who we understand our place in the world and That's a beautiful place to come from. Doing something because that is what I believe is true and right and good and the best version of who I am.
Yeah.
I want that way more than I want to do something because they, them think I should, or I have internalized those voices.
I know me. I know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least I'm willing to learn.
So let's get to our predator awareness kit, our pack. What can you take away from this experience? Jill, PJ?
So what just came to me was not being afraid to feel pride, because I think that often that if you're in a relationship with a predator, they don't want you to feel good about yourself. But if you do connect with yourself, if you do actually experience pleasure, you could actually feel proud about that. And we see pride as sometimes being a bad thing, but just consider perhaps being proud of who you are as being a very good thing.
I would say tapping into joy is a beautiful thing. Just being aware of what brings you to that space and the toxicity of have to, ought to, and should.
Pride and joy.
I have two things. If that voice comes back, I know who you are. Remind yourself and the world, I know who I am. Your values, what you enjoy. And the second thing I would say is tap sensorially into things that feel good, because so much of the powerlessness is cutting us off from our own experiences. What is feeling good in this moment? And it could just be as simple as walking on the sand on the beach, and that feels good on the bottom of my feet. Because I think through that we can tap into our greater wants and dreams. Thank you. I think this is great.
Great episode.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love this. And I hope you listening to this can take some information back and use it in your own life, and how we are all powerful people, how we have something to offer the world. And even if you've had a person in your life, a predator, a parent, or a person, a spouse, anybody, that you stop listening to that voice and remember who you are and what you have to offer.
So if our first season was Prey versus Predator 101, season 2 is 201. So it might be a wise thing for you guys to go back and listen to the first season if you haven't already. It's really foundational, really good stories, really profound insight.
Whether you're a first-time listener or a regular, thanks again for tuning in. We launch a new episode every week, so subscribe to our podcast to make sure you get notified whenever a new episode drops.
To learn more and engage with us further, check us out on social media at Prey vs. Predator. We post regular tidbits and clips from our podcast to help support and empower our growing Prey community. We also have a YouTube channel where PJ does some deeper dives into prey and predator dynamics that we find in pop culture, such as movies, TV shows, or current events.
Everything we do is intended to support and empower you, our listeners. So if you appreciate what we do and want to support us, consider leaving a rating and review, and share this podcast with friends and family so it can get out to those who need it. You might also consider supporting us financially on Patreon. We have a number of perks available to people who give, and every little bit helps us to continue to create this